If you think you can walk away and I won't care, you don't know me at all. That's what Lucas Hale said last night, his voice low and steady like he wasn't the same guy who laughed 2 weeks ago and told me, "Relax, it's just a game." A game. That word keeps echoing in my head as I stand across the crowded room, pretending I don't feel his eyes on me, pretending I don't notice the way the air shifts every time he moves, like the space between us is charged with something unfinished. I used to look for him without thinking, used to react to every smirk, every teasing comment, like I was part of the rhythm he controlled so effortlessly, but not anymore, not after I realized I was the only one playing for real while he kept score like it didn't matter. So I stopped. I stopped texting back right away, stopped laughing at his jokes, stopped letting myself get pulled into his orbit, and for a while, it worked. I felt lighter, steadier, like I finally had both feet on the ground instead of hovering in whatever undefined thing we were pretending not to name. But then something shifted. It was small at first, barely noticeable, like the way his voice would tighten when I talked to someone else, or how he'd linger a second too long when handing me something, his fingers brushing mine like it wasn't accidental. I told myself I was imagining it, that Lucas doesn't do serious, doesn't do real, doesn't suddenly change the rules halfway through the game. And yet here we are. I can feel him before I even turn, that same quiet intensity pressing against my back, and when I finally glance over, it hits me all at once. He's not smiling, not teasing, just watching, like I'm something slipping out of reach. My chest tightens, not because I want to believe it means something, but because a part of me still does, still wants to step back into that space where everything felt easy even if it wasn't honest. Someone next to me says something, pulls me into a conversation I barely hear, and I nod along, forcing myself to stay present, to stay here, to not get pulled back into him again. Then a laugh, closer than expected, a hand on my shoulder that isn't his. And that's when it happens. Lucas moves, fast enough that I barely register it until he's there, close, too close, his presence cutting through everything else like it always does. His hand wraps around my wrist, firm but not rough, just enough to stop me, to anchor me, and my breath catches because this isn't how he plays. This isn't casual. This isn't nothing. I look up at him, searching for the smirk, the joke, the easy way out he always uses, but it's not there. His eyes are darker, sharper, locked on mine like he's trying to say something he doesn't know how to put into words. I swallow, forcing my voice steady even when my pulse isn't. "I thought you said it was just a game." For a second, he doesn't answer, and that silence stretches, tight and heavy, like something about to break. Then he exhales, slow, controlled, like he's choosing every word carefully. "Yeah," he says, softer than I've ever heard him. "I did." His grip doesn't loosen. If anything, it tightens just a fraction, enough for me to notice, enough for me to feel the shift all over again. And then, quieter, almost like he's admitting something he can't take back, "I was wrong." My brain does not catch up right away, like everything inside me is buffering, lagging behind the reality of his hand still wrapped around my wrist, and those 3 words hanging between us like they changed something fundamental, like they rewrote the rules I had finally learned to live by. And I hate that the first thing I feel is not anger, not even confusion, but relief, sharp and unwanted, because a part of me had been waiting for this, for him to say he was wrong, for him to admit that it meant something, that I meant something, and I pull my hand back anyway, not harsh, just enough to create space, because I need that space. I need to breathe. I need to remember why I walked away in the first place. And Lucas notices, of course he does. His eyes flicker down to the distance between us like it is a problem he does not know how to fix. And for the first time since I met him, he looks uncertain, not in a dramatic way, not obvious, but there, subtle, in the way his shoulders hold. Just a little too still, in the way his jaw tightens like he is holding something back, and it throws me off more than anything else, because Lucas Hale does not hesitate. He does not second guess. He does not lose control of a situation, except right now, standing in front of me. He kind of is, and it makes everything feel even more dangerous. "You were wrong." I repeat quietly, like I need to hear it again to believe it. And he nods once, slow, deliberate, like he is committing to it, like he knows there is no taking it back. And I let out a small breath that I did not realize I was holding, my thoughts tangling over each other, trying to make sense of this version of him that I was not prepared for, because it would have been easier if he stayed the same, if he kept smiling, kept pretending, kept everything light and meaningless so I could keep pretending I was fine with it. But this is real, and real is harder. Real is messy. Real asks for things I am not sure I am ready to give again. Lucas, I start, but I do not even know what I am going to say, because there are too many options, too many things I could throw at him, questions, accusations, everything I swallowed when he told me it was just a game, and he steps closer before I can finish, not enough to crowd me, just enough to close the gap I created, like he is not willing to let it stay there, and my heart does that stupid, inconvenient thing where it speeds up even when my head is telling me to slow down, to be careful, to not fall back into something that already proved it could hurt. I know what I said. He cuts in, his voice quieter now, not sharp, not teasing, just steady, and there is something underneath it I cannot quite name yet, something that feels heavier than before, and I know what it sounded like, he adds, and I let out a short, humorless breath. It sounded like you did not care, I say, because I need him to hear it. I need him to understand exactly what that did, and he does. Not argue, does not deflect, just nods again, slower this time, like each agreement. Costs him something? I did not think it mattered, he admits, and that lands harder than I expect, because it is honest in a way he usually avoids, and I shake my head slightly, more to myself than to him. It mattered to me. I say, softer now, because saying it out loud makes it real in a way I cannot take back, and for a second, everything goes quiet around us, the noise of the room fading into something distant, like we are standing in our own separate space, just the two of us, and everything we did not say before. And Lucas looks at me like he is seeing me clearly for the first time, like he is finally understanding something he should have realized earlier, and when he speaks again, his voice drops just enough to make my chest tighten. I know, he says, and then, after a beat that feels too long, too important, that is why it matters now. I should walk away. That is the first clear thought that cuts through the noise, sharp and urgent, because this is exactly how it started last time, with him standing too close, saying things that sound real enough to believe, and me letting myself drift back in before I even realize I am falling, but my feet do not move, and that is the problem. That has always been the problem, because Lucas Hale looks at me like I am something he has already decided on, like I am not an option but a certainty, and it makes it harder to hold on to the distance I fought to create. You cannot just decide it matters now, I say, and my voice is steadier than I feel, which is something, at least, something I can hold on to, and he exhales quietly, like he expected that, like he deserves it, which he probably does, and for a second he glances away, just a fraction, like he is choosing his next words carefully instead of saying the first thing that comes to mind, and that alone tells me this is different, because Lucas does not usually filter himself. He does not need to. He has always been confident enough to say whatever he wants and deal with the consequences later, but now he is thinking first, and that makes my chest tighten in a way I do not like. I am not deciding anything for you, he says finally, and his voice is calm, but there is something underneath it, something controlled, like he is holding a line he does not want to cross too fast. I am just not pretending anymore, and that lands somewhere deep, somewhere I have been trying not to look at, because pretending was safe. Pretending meant I could tell myself none of it mattered, that I was not actually risking anything. But now he is taking that away, and I do not know if I am ready for what replaces it. You should have thought about that before. I say, softer now, because anger takes too much energy and I am tired, more tired than I want to admit, and he nods again, like he is collecting every word I throw at him and not arguing with any of it. And that is frustrating in its own way, because I almost want him to push back, to give me something to resist, something to fight against, but he does not. He just stands there, steady, present, like he is willing to take whatever I give him as long as I do not walk away. And that realization hits harder than anything else, because it shifts the balance again, puts something in my hands that I did not ask for. So what? I ask after a moment, folding my arms slightly like I need a barrier between us. What happens now? And the question hangs there, heavier than it should be, because it is not just about this moment. It is about everything that comes after, every choice, every step forward or back, and Lucas looks at me like the answer matters, like I matter, and that should not feel as new as it does, but it does. That depends on you, he says, and it is simple, almost too simple, but there is no hesitation in it, no game, no hidden angle, just a quiet kind of certainty that I am not used to from him. And I search his face for something familiar, something that tells me this is still the same situation I walked away from. But I do not find it, and that is what unsettles me the most, because if this is not the same, then I do not know the rules anymore, and I hate not knowing. I hate feeling like I am standing at the edge of something I cannot see the end of, and yet I do not step back. I do not leave. I just stand there, caught between the version of him I thought I understood and the one in front of me now. And after a long second, I shake my head slightly, more to clear my thoughts than anything else. I do not trust this, I admit, because that is the truth, the simplest and hardest piece of it. And Lucas does not flinch, does not look offended or surprised. He just nods once more, slower this time, like he expected that too, like he knows trust is not something he gets to ask for. And when he speaks again, his voice is quieter, but there is something solid in it, something that does not waver. Then do not, he says, and I blink, caught off guard by that answer, by the lack of pressure, the lack of demand. And he takes a small step back, just enough to give me space this time, like he is showing me he can, like he is learning. But do not walk away, without giving me a chance to prove it. He adds, and there it is, not a game, not a joke, not a challenge, just a request, simple and dangerous in a completely different way. And I stare at him, my mind racing, my heart louder than I want it to be, because this is not what I planned, this is not what I prepared for, and somehow that makes it harder to leave than anything else ever did. I should say no, that is what every logical part of my brain is telling me, loud and insistent, because giving him a chance means stepping back into something that already proved it could unravel me. And I worked too hard to put myself back together after that. Too many late nights replaying his words, too many mornings forcing myself not to check my phone, not to wonder if maybe he would change his mind on his own, but he never did, not until now. And that is exactly why I should not trust it. Because it came too late, because it only showed up when I stopped being available. And yet I am still here, still standing in front of him instead of walking away like I promised myself I would if this ever happened. And that contradiction sits heavy in my chest, making it hard to breathe evenly. A chance. I repeat quietly, like I am testing how the words feel, and they feel dangerous, like something that could pull me back under before I even realize I am sinking again. And Lucas does not rush to fill the silence this time. He just watches me, patient in a way I have never seen from him before, like he understands that this moment matters more than anything he could say too quickly. And that patience makes it harder, not easier, because it feels real, and real is what I have been trying to avoid since the beginning. You had your chance, I finally say, not sharp, not accusatory, just factual, because that is the truth, simple and unavoidable. And his jaw tightens slightly, just enough for me to notice, just enough to tell me that landed where it was supposed to. But he does not argue, does not deflect, does not try to twist it into something lighter. I know, he says, and there is no hesitation in it, no attempt to soften it, just acceptance. And that throws me off again, because I am used to pushing against something with him, used to there being resistance, but now it feels like he is meeting me exactly where I am, and I do not know how to handle that. Then why now? I ask, because that question has been sitting in the back of my mind since this started, growing louder with every second we stand here, and I need to hear his answer, not something vague, not something easy, something real. And for the first time since this conversation began, Lucas hesitates in a way that is not subtle, in a way that is visible, his gaze dropping for a brief second before lifting back to mine, like he is choosing honesty over comfort. And that alone makes my pulse pick up, because it means whatever he says next is going to matter. Because you walked away, he says, and it is simple, almost too simple, but the way he says it, the weight behind it, makes it clear there is more underneath. And I let out a quiet breath, because of course that is part of it, of course it took me leaving for him to notice what was missing. That is how this always goes. And I shake my head slightly, a small, almost involuntary motion. So this is about you not liking that you lost, I say, because I need to know if this is just another version of the same game, just with different rules. And something in his expression shifts at that, not defensive, not angry, just certain. like he has already thought about that possibility and ruled it out. No, he says, and there is no hesitation this time, no room for doubt. It is about me realizing I never had you in the first place. And that hits harder than I expect, because it reframes everything, because it takes away the idea that this was ever something he controlled, something he could win or lose, and turns it into something he never fully understood until it was gone. And I hate that it affects me, hate that my chest tightens again, that my thoughts stumble for a second as I try to process it, because this is exactly what I was trying to avoid, this pull, this shift, this moment where everything feels like it could change if I let it. And I am not sure if I am ready for that, not sure if I am strong enough to risk it again. And yet I do not leave, I do not step back. I just stand there, caught in the space between what I know I should do and what a part of me still wants. And Lucas watches me like he understands that too, like he is not expecting an answer right now, just a decision. Eventually, and that somehow makes it harder to turn away, because it means the choice is entirely mine, and I am not sure which option scares me more. The room feels smaller than it did a minute ago, like the walls closed in just enough to make everything sharper, louder, more real, and I hate how aware I am of him, of the space he takes up even when he is not touching me, of the way my body remembers things my mind is still trying to reject, and I drag a slow breath in through my nose, steady, controlled, because I need control right now. I need something that is mine. And not something he can shift just by standing too close and saying the right words at the wrong time. You are making this sound simple, I say, and my voice comes out quieter than I intended, like I am already halfway somewhere I told myself I would not go again. And Lucas tilts his head slightly, watching me like he is reading something I have not said yet, something I am not even sure I understand myself. It is not simple, he replies, and there is no hesitation in it, just a calm certainty that almost frustrates me more than anything else, because he is right. It is not simple. It was never simple, and pretending it was a game was the only thing that made it manageable, the only thing that kept me from asking for more than he was willing to give. And now that excuse is gone, stripped away, leaving everything exposed in a way that feels too raw, too immediate. Then why does it feel like you expect me to just stay? I say, the last word catching slightly, because that is what this is really about. Not a chance, not a conversation, but the idea of me staying, of me choosing to remain in something that could break again. And his gaze softens just enough to make my chest tighten, just enough to make me want to look away, but I do not. I hold it, even when it is uncomfortable, even when it feels like standing too close to a fire I already got burned by once. I do not expect anything from you, he says, and the way he says it matters, the lack of pressure, the absence of demand, like he understands that expectation is exactly what would push me away right now. And I swallow, my thoughts tangling again because that is not the answer I was bracing for, not the one I prepared to fight against. Then what do you want? I ask, because that is the question that has been building since the moment he grabbed my wrist, since the moment he said he was wrong. And Lucas does not answer right away, not because he is avoiding it, but because he is choosing it, and that difference is enough to make my pulse pick up again, slow but steady, like something shifting beneath the surface. And when he finally speaks, his voice is lower, not intense, not overwhelming, just honest in a way that feels unfamiliar coming from him. I want you to stop pretending this did not matter, he says, and that hits somewhere deep, somewhere I have been trying to ignore, because pretending it did not matter was the only way I could move forward without constantly looking back. And I shake my head slightly, more reflex than decision. It mattered, I admit, the words coming out softer than anything else I have said tonight, because that truth has always been the hardest one to hold on to without feeling like I was losing something in the process. And his eyes stay on mine, steady, like he is not going to look away from that admission, like he is not going to let me take it back. Then do not act like it did not, he says, and there is no accusation in it. Just a quiet insistence that feels more powerful than anything louder would have been, and I let out a breath that feels heavier than it should. Because he is asking for something I do not know how to give without risking everything I just rebuilt, and for a second, I glance away, breaking the eye contact just long enough to ground myself, to remind myself that I have a choice here, that I am not being pulled into anything I cannot step out of. And when I look back at him, he has not moved, has not pushed, has not tried to close the distance again, just standing there, waiting. And that waiting says more than anything else he has done so far, because it means he is not trying to win this, not trying to control it, just trying to stay. And that realization shifts something inside me in a way I am not ready to name. Not yet, because naming it would make it real, and real is still the thing I am most afraid of. The silence stretches longer this time, not empty, not awkward, just full of everything neither of us is saying out loud. And I can feel it pressing against my chest, slow and steady, like a weight I cannot shake off no matter how hard I try to keep things simple, because nothing about this is simple anymore. Not the way he looks at me. Not the way I keep standing here instead of leaving. Not the way my thoughts keep circling back to the same question I have been avoiding since the beginning. What if this time is different? And I hate that question, hate how easily it slips in, how it softens the edges of everything I built to protect myself, and I force myself to focus on something concrete, something I can control. You keep saying you are not pretending anymore. I say slowly, choosing each word like it matters, because it does, because I cannot afford to misunderstand him again. But what does that actually mean? And Lucas does not answer right away, his gaze steady, not avoiding, not deflecting. Just there, like he is making sure I am really asking before he gives me something real in return, and that alone makes my pulse pick up, because this is the part where it matters most. This is where he either falls back into what is easy or steps into something that actually means something, and I am not sure which one I am hoping for anymore. It means I am done acting like this is nothing, he says finally, and his voice is calm, but there is something underneath it, something firm, something that does not waver, and I swallow, because that sounds simple, but it is not. Not when everything we had before was built on the idea that it did not mean anything, that it was safe because it was temporary, and now he is removing that safety net, leaving everything exposed in a way that feels too real, too immediate. And what if I do not want that? I ask, because I need to know if he understands that part too, that this is not just about him deciding to care, it is about me deciding if I can handle that care without losing myself again. And his expression shifts slightly, not surprised, not defensive, just thoughtful, like he has already considered that possibility and is not going to pretend it does not exist. Then you do not have to stay, he says, and the words hit differently this time. Because they are not pushing me away, they are giving me space, real space, the kind I asked for when I walked away, and for a second, I just look at him, trying to figure out if there is a catch, if there is something hidden behind that answer. But there is not, just a quiet certainty that he is not going to trap me in something I do not choose. And that should make this easier. It should make it simple to step back, to walk away, to protect myself the way I planned to, but it does not, because now the choice is entirely mine, and that is somehow harder. You are not making this easy, I say under my breath, more to myself than to him, and I see the faintest hint of something in his expression, not a smile, not amusement, just a brief flicker of understanding, like he knows exactly what I mean. It was never going to be easy, he replies, and that is probably the most honest thing he has said so far, because if it were easy, I would have left already. If it were easy, I would not still be standing here trying to decide between protecting myself and risking something I cannot predict. And I let out a slow breath, my shoulders loosening just a fraction as I try to sort through the mess in my head, because there has to be a way to move forward without completely giving in or completely shutting him out. There has to be something in between, even if I do not know what it looks like yet. And after a long second, I meet his gaze again, holding it this time, not looking away, not avoiding what is right in front of me. One chance, I say, the words coming out before I can overthink them, before I can pull them back, and his eyes sharpen slightly, not in intensity, but in focus, like he is locking onto that moment, like he understands exactly what I am offering and what it costs. That is all you get, I add, because I need that boundary. I need something solid to stand on if this goes wrong again. And Lucas nods once, slow and deliberate, like he is accepting more than just the words, like he is accepting the weight behind them. And when he speaks, his voice is quieter, but steadier than anything else he has said tonight. That is all I need. And something in the way he says it makes my chest tighten again, not with fear this time. Not entirely, but with something else, something I am not ready to name yet. Something that feels like the beginning of something I am not sure I am ready for, but no longer completely afraid of either. The moment the words leave my mouth, something shifts between us again, subtle but undeniable, like the air itself recalibrates around the decision I just made, and I feel it instantly, the weight of it settling into my chest, heavier than I expected, because one chance sounds simple when you say it out loud, but it is not. Not when it carries everything that came before it and everything that could come after, and for a second, I almost take it back, almost say something to soften it, to make it less final, less risky, but I do not. I hold my ground, because if I am doing this, if I am really giving him that chance, then it has to mean something. It has to be real, and Lucas seems to understand that without me having to explain it, because he does not smile, does not treat it like a victory, just nods like he is accepting terms. Like this is not a game he is trying to win, but something he is choosing to step into carefully, and that alone steadies me just a little, enough to keep me from second-guessing myself right away. So what does that look like? I ask after a moment, because a chance is not a plan, and I need something more than vague intentions if this is going to go anywhere different than before, and Lucas pauses, not long, just enough to think, and that still catches me off guard, because I am used to him having an answer for everything, used to him moving through situations like he already knows the outcome, but this time he is slower, more deliberate, like he is aware that this matters in a way nothing else did before. It looks like me not assuming I know what you want, he says finally, and there is something careful in the way he phrases it, like he is choosing honesty over confidence, and I tilt my head slightly, considering that, because he is not wrong. He always assumed before, assumed I would go along with whatever he said, whatever he decided, and most of the time I did. Because it was easier than questioning it, easier than risking the moment by